I thought Amanda was the one. We connected instantly, shared the same humor, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. For 6 incredible months, everything seemed perfect. Then she started mentioning her ex Brad. At first it was occasional comments, but soon she was comparing everything I did to how perfect Brad would have done it. The constant comparisons wore me down until one day she crossed the line. Before I tell you how I handled this situation, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever faced someone who could not let go of their past. I met Amanda at a house party thrown by our mutual friend Jackson. It was one of those gatherings where I almost did not go because I was tired from work, but something told me to push through and make an appearance. Thank goodness I listened to that inner voice because that night changed everything. Amanda stood across the room laughing with some friends. Her brown hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, and when she smiled, her whole face lit up. Jackson introduced us, mentioning we both worked in similar industries. I am in marketing and she works in public relations. The conversation flowed naturally from the first hello. "So you are the famous Jimmy," she said with a playful smile. "Jackson has been trying to introduce us for months." I was surprised but pleased. "All good things, I hope." Mostly she teased, and that was it. I was captivated. We talked for hours that night, finding ourselves still deep in conversation when most guests had already left. We exchanged numbers, and I asked her out for coffee the following weekend. Our first date was at this little coffee shop downtown called Bean There. It was casual but allowed us to really talk without the noise of the party. Amanda was even more impressive one-on-one. She was smart, articulate, and had this way of making me feel like the most interesting person in the room. By the end of that coffee date, I knew I wanted to see her again. The first 3 months with Amanda were incredible. We fell into an easy rhythm together, seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week. We went to movies and discovered we both loved psychological thrillers. We cooked dinner together at my place, where she taught me how to make real Italian pasta from scratch. We took long walks in Riverside Park on Sunday mornings, talking about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. Every moment with Amanda felt right, like pieces of a puzzle fitting perfectly together. I started thinking she might be the woman I had been waiting for all my life. She was beautiful, yes, but it was her mind and heart that really drew me in. She was passionate about her work, kind to strangers, and had this infectious enthusiasm for life that pulled me out of my sometimes too serious mindset. After 2 months, I introduced Amanda to my family during a Sunday dinner. My parents adored her, especially my mom, who later called to tell me not to mess this one up. My sister Sarah immediately took to Amanda, texting me later that she was a keeper. My close friends Tony and Kyle gave their stamps of approval too. We all went bowling one night, and afterward Tony pulled me aside. "She is amazing, man. Way better than the last few you have dated." I felt like everything in my life was falling into place. For the first time in years, I could see a clear future with someone. I even caught myself looking at jewelry store windows, not necessarily for engagement rings yet, but just imagining what might be down the road. It was around the 4-month mark when I first heard the name Brad. We were deciding on a restaurant for dinner, and I suggested Italian. "Brad took me to this amazing Italian place for our anniversary," Amanda said casually. "They had the most incredible truffle pasta. I did not think much of it at the time. Everyone has exes, and occasional references seemed normal. But then Brad started making more appearances in our conversations. Brad always kept his apartment so clean," she mentioned while helping me tidy up my place. "Brad used to wear shirts exactly that color," she said one day when I wore a new button-down. Each comment by itself seemed innocent enough, but they started to form a pattern. I tried not to let it bother me. After all, Amanda was with me now, not this Brad guy. The first time I felt genuinely uncomfortable was when we were shopping and I was trying on a jacket. Amanda looked at me with her head tilted and said Brad had a similar style, but he went for more fitted cuts. They really showcased his athletic build. I forced a smile, but something inside me sank. Was she comparing our bodies now? When I mentioned these comments to Tony over beers, he frowned. "That is weird, man. How often does she bring him up?" I thought about it and realized it was happening almost daily now. Some small reference, some comparison, some story about what Brad used to do or say or like. You might want to talk to her about it, Tony suggested. It is not cool to keep bringing up an ex like that. I nodded, but part of me was worried. What if bringing it up made me look insecure? What if it was all innocent and I was overthinking things? So I decided to let it go a little longer, hoping the references would fade naturally as our relationship grew stronger. But they did not fade. If anything, they became more frequent and more pointed. Over the next few weeks, the comparisons became impossible to ignore. It was not just occasional anymore, but several times a day. Every decision, every preference, everything I did seemed to trigger a memory or comparison to Brad. Brad always knew the best restaurants to take me to, she would say when I suggested places to eat. Brad was so good at picking out wines, she would comment when I ordered at dinner. Brad would always buy me flowers just because it was Tuesday, she would sigh when walking past a florist. Each comment stung a little more than the last. It was like living with a ghost competing with an invisible rival who apparently did everything better than me. I started second-guessing my choices, wondering if I was somehow falling short. The comments were not always direct criticisms, but they might as well have been. The implication was clear: Brad was better, smarter, more thoughtful, more romantic. I was constantly being measured against him and found wanting. What hurt the most was that Amanda seemed oblivious to how these comparisons made me feel. Her comments came so naturally, so casually, as if she truly did not understand the impact of her words. I tried to brush it off, to be understanding. Maybe she just needed time to fully move on. Maybe these comparisons were just her processing her past relationship. I told myself all sorts of things to rationalize the behavior, but deep down the doubts were growing. Was I just a replacement stand-in until she found someone more like Brad? Or worse, was she hoping I would become more like him? Despite my growing discomfort, I started trying to adjust myself to meet the invisible standard she had set. If Brad wore fitted shirts, I bought fitted shirts. If Brad knew about wine, I downloaded wine apps and started learning. If Brad surprised her with flowers, I set up regular flower deliveries. I worked longer hours to afford nicer restaurants, the kind she hinted Brad would have chosen. I changed my haircut to something more similar to what I had seen in a photo she had shown me once. I even started working out more intensely, trying to match the athletic build she had mentioned. Tony noticed the changes immediately. During a pickup basketball game, he pulled me aside. "What is going on with you, man? These new clothes, the hair, even the restaurants you are suggesting for our group dinners. It is not you." I tried to brush it off, just trying some new things. Because of what Amanda wants, he pressed. I could not meet his eyes, which was answer enough. "You are changing yourself for someone who cannot stop talking about her ex," Tony said bluntly. "That is messed up, Jimmy. You were great before all this. You do not need to become someone else." His words hit hard, but I was already too deep in my transformation. I was desperate to make Amanda see me as good enough to stop the constant comparisons. My sister Sarah noticed too. During our monthly lunch, she studied me across the table. "You look different," she said, "and not in a good way. You look stressed." I confided in her about the situation with Amanda and the constant mentions of Brad. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "That is emotional manipulation, whether she realizes it or not. No one should make you feel like you need to change who you are. I just want to make her happy," I admitted. "But at what cost? Your own happiness, your identity." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "The right person will love you for who you are, not who they want you to be." I knew she was right, but I was not ready to give up on Amanda yet. I convinced myself that if I could just be more like what she wanted, the comparisons would stop and we could be truly happy together. Everything came to a head on my birthday. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, planning to take the day off work for us to spend together. Amanda had promised to plan something special. The day started well. She made breakfast and gave me a thoughtful gift, a watch I had admired months ago. But as we were getting ready to go out for the day, it started. "Brad always went all out for his birthdays," she said, watching me put on my shoes. "One year he rented out an entire restaurant and had a celebrity chef cook for his friends." I felt a familiar twinge of inadequacy, but pushed it aside. Well, I am looking forward to whatever you have planned. It is not as elaborate as what Brad would do, she said with a small laugh. He was always so extra about celebrations. By the time we reached the restaurant she had chosen for lunch, I was already feeling deflated. Throughout the meal, she sprinkled in more comparisons. How Brad always ordered champagne on special occasions. How Brad loved surprising her with extravagant gifts. When the waiter brought out a cake and the restaurant staff sang happy birthday, Amanda leaned over and whispered, "Brad once had a professional choir sing for me on my birthday. It was so over the top." Something in me finally snapped. All the hurt, all the inadequacy, all the frustration of the past months bubbled to the surface. "Can you go 5 minutes without mentioning Brad?" I said, my voice louder than I intended. "It is my birthday, and all I have heard about is how much better Brad would have done everything." The restaurant went quiet. Amanda looked shocked, then hurt. "I was just making conversation," she said defensively. "No, you were comparing me to him. Again. Like you always do. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel?" We left the restaurant in tense silence and had our first real fight in the car. All the feelings I had been suppressing came pouring out, how worthless the comparisons made me feel, how I could never measure up to this perfect ex of hers. Amanda cried, apologized, said she had no idea she was doing it so often. She promised to be more mindful, insisted that she was with me because she wanted to be with me, not Brad. I wanted to believe her, but something had broken. For the first time, I wondered if this relationship was really what I wanted, or if I was just trying to win a competition with someone who was not even in the room. A week after the birthday incident, Amanda organized what she called a special night to make things right between us. She cooked dinner at her place, a recipe she said she had been saving for a special occasion. She wore a dress I had once complimented, and the apartment was decorated with candles and soft music. It felt like a fresh start, and I allowed myself to hope that things were changing. The dinner was delicious, the conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in weeks, Brad's name had not come up once. After dinner, we moved to the couch with glasses of wine. Amanda curled up next to me, her head on my shoulder in that familiar way I had grown to love. "I have been thinking a lot about our fight," she said softly, "and I realize I have not been fair to you." Relief washed over me. "I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot. I want us to work, Jimmy. I really do." She traced her finger along my arm, "and I think I know how we can make things better." "I am all ears," I said, feeling hopeful. She sat up and looked at me with what seemed like genuine excitement. "What if you could learn some tips from Brad?" I froze, certain I had misheard her. "Excuse me, not directly, of course," she clarified quickly. "But I could tell you what worked in our relationship, the things he did that really made me happy." I sat there stunned as she continued. "Or actually, he and I are still friends on social media. Maybe we could even meet up with him sometime and you could see firsthand. He is really cool, I promise. You might even become friends." The wine glass in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. I set it down before I dropped it. A cold, hollow feeling spread through my chest as the full reality of the situation hit me. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to take relationship advice from your ex-boyfriend?" Amanda nodded enthusiastically. "Just little things, like how he planned dates, or his gift-giving strategy. He was really good at that stuff." "And you think that would make our relationship better?" My voice sounded distant even to my own ears. "Well, yeah, I mean, why reinvent the wheel, right?" She laughed lightly, as if this was the most reasonable suggestion in the world. "I know what makes me happy, and he figured out a lot of it already." In that moment, something broke inside me. Not just my heart, but some fundamental trust I had placed in this relationship. I had been trying so hard to be enough for her, changing myself bit by bit, and all along she had been wishing I could be more like him. "I need some air," I managed to say, standing up abruptly. "Jimmy, wait, did I say something wrong?" Her confused expression only made it worse. She truly did not see the problem. I left her apartment without another word, my mind racing. Outside in the cool night air, I finally let the tears come. The humiliation, the inadequacy, the realization that I had been living in someone else's shadow for months, all crashed over me at once. The following day, I decided to learn more about this perfect Brad who had such a hold on Amanda. I reached out to Jackson, our mutual friend, who had introduced us. Over coffee, Jackson looked uncomfortable when I brought up the subject. "Man, I was hoping you would never ask me about this." "Just tell me the truth," I said. "I need to know what I am dealing with here." Jackson sighed. "Brad and Amanda were together for 2 years. Everyone thought they would get married. He was this finance guy, made good money, drove a fancy car, all that stuff." "So what happened?" I asked, dreading the answer. "He dumped her. Out of nowhere. Took her to her favorite restaurant and ended it. Cold as ice." Jackson shook his head. "She was devastated. Did not leave her apartment for weeks. This was about 3 months before you met her." The timeline hit me like a truck. 3 months. She had barely had time to process the breakup before meeting me. "Does she still talk to him?" I asked. "Not that I know of. He was pretty clear it was over. Last I heard, he moved to Boston for work." Jackson gave me a sympathetic look. "Has she been talking about him a lot?" "You have no idea," I said bitterly. When I got home, I called Tony and Kyle to come over. I needed perspective from people who knew me before Amanda, who could see the situation clearly. She actually suggested you take tips from her ex. Kyle was incredulous. "That is next level messed up." Tony was less surprised. "I knew something was off when you started changing everything about yourself." This explains it. They helped me see what I had been too close to notice. I was a rebound, a placeholder, someone Amanda was trying to mold into a replacement for the man who had broken her heart. "You need to end it," Tony said firmly. "This is not healthy for either of you." "But I love her," I protested weakly. "Do you love her, or the idea of who she could be if she actually saw you for yourself?" Kyle asked. That question haunted me for days. I realized I needed to have one final honest conversation with Amanda. I called her and asked to meet at a neutral location, a park bench where we had spent many Sunday afternoons. When I laid out my feelings, explaining how hurtful the comparisons had been, how her suggestion had made me feel, Amanda seemed genuinely remorseful. "I had no idea," she said, wiping tears. "I never meant to hurt you. I care about you so much, Jimmy. Do you?" I asked. "Or do you care about turning me into Brad?" Her silence was answer enough. "Do you still have feelings for him?" I pressed. She looked away. "It is complicated. What we had was really special. And what we have, that is special too, just different." She reached for my hand. "I want to be with you, Jimmy." "I do. I can work on this, I promise." But looking into her eyes, I could see the truth. I was the safe option, the good enough for now, while she still carried a torch for her perfect ex. And I deserved better than that. I knew then that I needed to end this relationship not just for my sake, but for hers too. She needed to properly move on from Brad before she could truly be with someone else. But a small hurt part of me wanted her to understand exactly how it felt to be treated as second best. Over the next few days, I wrestled with my decision. Ending the relationship was clear, but how to do it remained a question. The suggestion of taking tips from Brad had been the final straw, but it also gave me an idea. I reached out to Jackson again, this time with specific questions. I need to know exactly how Brad broke up with Amanda. Details, location, what he said, all of it. Jackson looked uncomfortable. "Why do you want to know that, Closure?" I said simply. After some reluctance, Jackson filled me in. Brad had taken Amanda to Luciano's, her favorite Italian restaurant. He had been normal throughout dinner, then suddenly became serious over dessert. He told her that while he cared about her, he did not see a future together. He said they wanted different things, and it was better to end things now before they invested more time. He was calm, rational, and completely unmoved by her tears. He paid the bill, walked her to her car, and that was it. No contact afterward. "It was brutal," Jackson concluded. "Like flipping a switch from boyfriend to stranger." I thanked him for the information, my plans solidifying in my mind. Part of me questioned if what I was planning crossed an ethical line. Was I being petty, cruel? But another part of me, the part that had endured months of feeling inadequate, of changing myself to meet an impossible standard, of being treated like a consolation prize, that part wanted Amanda to understand exactly How it felt. I called my sister Sarah for a final gut check. So you are basically going to break up with her the exact same way her ex did, Sarah clarified after I explained my plan. Yes. Too much. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Under normal circumstances, I would say yes. But after everything you have told me about how she has been treating you, I think maybe she needs to experience what she has been putting you through. So you do not think I am being horrible. I think you are standing up for yourself in a way that might actually get through to her, Sarah replied. Just make sure this is really about closure and setting boundaries, not revenge. Her words helped clarify my intentions. This was not about hurting Amanda out of spite. It was about making a clean break in a way that might finally make her see how her behavior had affected me. Maybe then she could move on properly, both from Brad and from me. I made a reservation at Luciano's for Friday night. I wore the blue button-down shirt that Amanda had once mentioned was similar to one Brad owned. I got a haircut similar to what I had seen in the one photo of Brad that Amanda had shown me. I even borrowed Tony's silver watch that was more expensive looking than anything I owned. The night of the dinner, I felt strangely calm. The anxiety that had been my constant companion for months had been replaced by a quiet resolve. This chapter of my life was ending, but on my terms. I picked Amanda up at 7. She looked beautiful in a red dress I had never seen before. Her face lit up when she saw me, and for a brief moment I questioned what I was about to do. But then she spoke. You look great. That shirt really brings out your eyes, just like it did with... She caught herself. Sorry, no comparisons tonight. And just like that, my resolve returned. Dinner at Luciano's went smoothly. I was attentive, engaged in conversation, even charming. Amanda seemed relaxed and happy, commenting that it felt like things were finally getting back on track between us. She had no idea what was coming. As the waiter cleared our dinner plates and brought the dessert menu, I shifted in my seat, adopting a more serious expression. Amanda, there is something I need to discuss with you, I said, keeping my voice level and calm, just as Jackson had described Brad's demeanor. Her smile faltered slightly. That sounds serious. Everything okay? I took a deep breath and began reciting almost verbatim the words Jackson had told me Brad had used. I have been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about our relationship. While I care about you, I do not see a future for us together. We want different things, and I think it is better to end things now before we invest more time. Her face drained of color. The fork she was holding clattered onto her plate. What? Where is this coming from? I continued, maintaining the calm, detached tone. This is not a sudden decision. I have been considering it for some time. I think we both know things have not been right between us. Is this because of what I said about Brad? I told you I was sorry. I promised I would work on it, she pleaded, tears forming in her eyes. I signaled the waiter for the check, ignoring her question. When it arrived, I paid in full, leaving a generous tip just as Brad had done. Jimmy, please let us talk about this, Amanda said, her voice rising slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. I think everything has been said, I replied, standing up. I will walk you to your car. As we walked through the restaurant in silence, I could see realization dawning in her eyes. By the time we reached her car in the parking lot, she was shaking. This is exactly how Brad broke up with me, she whispered. At this same restaurant, you did this on purpose. I met her gaze steadily. Now you know how it feels to be treated like a carbon copy of someone else, to not be seen for who you actually are. Her tears flowed freely now. I never meant to make you feel that way. I was just still in love with him, I finished for her. I know, and that is why this is for the best for both of us. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. I do love you, Jimmy, in my way. I looked back at her one last time, but not enough to see me for who I am. Goodbye, Amanda. I walked to my car without looking back, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. There was sadness, of course, for the relationship I had once thought might last forever. But there was also an unexpected feeling of lightness, of liberation. For the first time in months, I was acting as myself, not as someone's replacement or second choice. The aftermath was predictably messy. Amanda called and texted constantly for the first week, alternating between anger bargaining and heartbroken pleas. Her messages ranged from, "How could you be so cruel?" to, "Please give me another chance, I promise things will be different." Some of her friends found my number and called to tell me what a heartless jerk I was. One even used the word abusive to describe my breakup method. Each accusation stung, making me question if I had crossed a line. But my friends stood firmly in my corner. Tony deleted a particularly nasty message from one of Amanda's friends before I could even see it. Kyle reminded me that after months of emotional manipulation, I had simply held up a mirror to Amanda's own behavior. My feelings in those first few days were complicated. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing I had made my point in a way Amanda could not ignore or dismiss. But there was also guilt that battled with that satisfaction. Had I stooped to a level that compromised my own values, was ending one unhealthy dynamic worth creating another? After 2 weeks of this internal struggle, I made the decision to block Amanda's number and social media accounts. Not out of anger, but because I recognized that continued contact was preventing both of us from moving forward. The clean break I had intended with the restaurant scene had become muddied with back-and-forth communication, reopening wounds that needed to heal. The first month after the breakup was the hardest. I found myself automatically reaching for my phone to text Amanda about something funny I had seen or walking by restaurants we had enjoyed together and feeling a pang of loss. There were moments when I questioned my decision, wondering if I should have tried harder to make things work, if I had been too harsh in my method of ending things. But gradually, as the weeks passed, I started reconnecting with parts of myself I had suppressed during our relationship. I resumed my Sunday morning runs that I had abandoned because Amanda preferred brunch. I started wearing the comfortable, casual clothes I had always preferred before trying to dress more like Brad. I returned to the hole-in-the-wall pizza place I loved that Amanda had deemed not classy enough. Each small act of reclaiming my identity felt like stepping more firmly onto solid ground. I spent more time with Tony and Kyle playing basketball and video games without constantly checking my phone for messages. I had dinner with my family weekly, where my sister Sarah noted with approval that I was starting to look like my old self again, but stronger somehow. 3 months after the breakup, I joined a local running club, something I had wanted to do for years. There, I met new people who knew nothing about my past with Amanda, who accepted me exactly as I was without comparison to anyone else. The simple joy of being seen for myself was healing in ways I had not anticipated. One evening after a run, a group of us went for smoothies. As I sat there laughing at someone's joke, I realized it was the first time in almost a year that I felt completely comfortable in my own skin. I did not have to monitor my words or actions against some invisible standard. I did not have to worry about falling short of someone else's expectations. I could just be Jimmy. That realization was powerful. The relationship with Amanda, painful as it had been toward the end, had taught me something invaluable. Never compromise who you are for someone who cannot appreciate you for yourself. Self-respect is not negotiable, and no relationship is worth the price of your identity. Looking back now, I can see that both Amanda and I were at fault in different ways. She was clearly not over her ex and projected those unresolved feelings onto our relationship. I allowed my desire to be loved to override my sense of self-worth, changing myself bit by bit until I barely recognized the man in the mirror. The way I ended things was dramatic, perhaps unnecessarily so, but it forced both of us to confront the unhealthy dynamic we had created together. I hope that Amanda has had time to properly heal from her breakup with Brad to find her own worth outside of relationships. Everyone deserves to be someone's first choice, not their consolation prize. As for me, I am grateful for the lesson, harsh as it was. I now know the warning signs to watch for, the importance of maintaining my boundaries, and the courage to walk away from situations that diminish rather than enhance who I am. Sometimes you have to lose something that was never really yours to find out who you truly are. And I have never felt more at peace with being exactly who I am. Have you ever found yourself changing who you are to please someone else, or been constantly compared to someone from your partner's past? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons. Remember, you deserve someone who loves you for exactly who you are, not who they want you to be. Thank you for listening, and may you always have the courage to stand up for yourself.